cornerback Jason Verrett out for the season with another Achilles injury. Prayers to Jason Verrett. We're going to talk about how the 49ers bounce back and whether they're Super Bowl contenders after this unfortunate injury. All after this.
Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, dominate on 3. 1, 2, 3. Dominate.
Welcome back, everybody, to another show, 49ers Red Zone Podcast. I've got a special guest today, Jesse Naylor, obviously, of Last Second Sports. Jesse, how are you doing today, my guy?
I'm doing fantastic. I just want to be clear. Rohan wrote, and I wrote back.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't for the first text, but like I mentioned in the spaces, but this is the first time in my life I'm so happy. Like, thank you, Daddy. No, I'm joking. But overall, Jesse, thank you for tuning in. This is the first time I've introduced you, and I haven't said anything negative because of your behavior. So this is going to be a nice introduction. Thank you for joining me. How are you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing fantastic. I don't know how to feel about that, Rohan. I really don't. But, I guess we're turning a new leaf possibly, so I appreciate it.
Yeah. But, guys, you see the title, the 49ers, Jason Verrett. Some unfortunate news today. Our guy, Marco Martinez, pretty much broke the news for whatever, the 50th time now. Unfortunately, we heard that Jason Verrett did suffer a torn Achilles. He is out for the season. This is unfortunate because Verrett has been pushing to play back, play again this season. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan spoke yesterday how it was really finally coming into fruition. Verrett was going to take over the cornerback drills. They wanted him to be reintegrated in week 10, after obviously a couple of weeks where they felt he was ready and he ended up not playing. What's kind of your initial thoughts, unfortunately, on this Verrett situation?
First of all, the thoughts just go out to the player and the person. I mean, I couldn't imagine going through a year and 2 months or so of just grueling rehab, doing everything you can to get back on the field to play the game that you love. I mean, you're talking about multiple ACL tears. Before this, already an Achilles tear at some point in his career. I mean, this guy clearly loves the game of football and wants to be a part of it. And before he even has a chance to get back on the field, this happens. I mean, it sucks. Let's just be real. He's not going to play football again. I would be shocked if he does. It's too much. At some point, you gotta let it go. And
Yeah.
I really, really hate that for Verrett. I mean, he's one of the better people. He's been here for a few years. He hasn't played a ton, but Mosley, there's a lot of credit that goes out to his development and helping Mosley get better. He just seems like a really genuine, good person. And for this to happen, man, it's heartbreaking because there's a human element to this, man. And I think a lot of people forget that. And this is one of those times where it's like, yeah, we're going to talk about how it impacts the 49ers and all those other things, but really, I hadn't put a lot of thought into how it affects the 49ers. I'm just thinking about Verrett, the person, today.
Yeah, I mean, when I heard the news, when I found out about it, it was really, really just unfortunate because I've been a Verrett supporter. I know you've also been a Verrett supporter. He's been just a guy who you want to cheer for, a guy who's gone through so much adversity, a guy who is one of the most strong-minded NFL players I've ever seen, to continuously work back through rehab just to get another shot. You could tell the passion he has for the game. And also, when he was right about to come back, this unfortunately happens in a practice when he was leading the drills. Really unfortunate for Verrett. You could tell the kind of the locker room aura was different. Deebo Samuel obviously had a couple of comments saying how it was tough to finish practice yesterday after the injury. Verrett, obviously a guy who has been with this team now since 2020, declined a multi-year deal to stay with the 49ers because he liked it. He wanted to bank on himself, and unfortunately now has been subject to a couple of injuries in his career.
Yeah, it definitely sucks. And it sucked knowing before everybody else knew, because it's like we had this information and it's like,
I
Oh my
hated it.
gosh,
I'm
you
not gonna
know it's
lie, I
real, but
hated it.
you're still hoping that somehow maybe you heard wrong. Maybe you're not going to get that Adam Schefter Rappaport tweet. Something miraculously is going to happen. They're going to go do tests and be like, "Oh, okay, it's a calf thing or something like that." But we knew hours before the news broke, and it sucked hanging on to that, and nobody else knows yet.
Yeah, it's really, really unfortunate. Here, 49ers throwback kind of just details the history. A torn left ACL, a torn left Achilles, a torn right ACL, torn right Achilles. Huge, huge injuries. And really, some players don't ever respond back from one injury. For him to go through 4 of these now and respond the way he has, it's inspirational. But on the Jason Verrett topic, as unfortunate as it is, the 49ers now have to move on. And they now have questions at defensive back because, in a way, many were assuming that insurance policy when Emmanuel Moseley went down was the one on the roster already. Jason Verrett, obviously,
Yeah.
many 49er fans held out hope at that position because Verrett was still there. Now, without Verrett, how do the 49ers move on at defensive back, both in the short term and the long term?
Well, I think I'll talk about long term first. I think long term is pretty easy. Mosley's not going to be as expensive as he was. I mean, let's just
Yeah,
be real. He's coming off of an injury as well, and so most likely you're going to be able to bring Mosley back. Maybe he does a Verrett type deal where he's like, "Hey, we'll do an
take
incentive
that 1
laden
year
deal,
deal.
something like that. We'll do a 1 year thing, and then let's see if I can go out and get more money." I imagine that Mosley comes back, so I think long term they're probably going to be okay there. But for this year, I think a lot of us banked on Verrett, but I don't know how you bank on a guy that's on the wrong side of 30, coming off of a major injury. We all hoped that he could kind of come in and be that guy that he was for us a couple years back, but there was no guarantee. I mean, they're all of a sudden pretty thin at corner, and that's it sucks because the 49ers have always been great in the front seven. It's like, man, if they just had lockdown corners. Now they do have one, let's be clear. Charvarius Ward is that guy. He is so damn good. He's he's everything that they hoped he would be plus some. And that's awesome, but they I mean, for me, I don't feel great about playing Ward at nickel. That's not where I want him to play. Lenore, I would prefer to be the nickel, but he's outside. Y- What if you have another injury? Is Womack fully ready to go? He showed some flashes where he may be, but Ambry Thomas, I mean, he seems to be a forgotten piece at this point. I don't know. Maybe they bring in a free agent corner. We'll see. But right now, they can afford 0 injuries in that secondary, especially at the corner position going forward. They just don't have the depth anymore.
Yeah, I mean, a team that we had lauded for their depth before now is a team where you've seen depth concerns at not one, but several positions, right? Defensive line, obviously, being one, cornerback being another. It's unfortunate that the 49ers have gone through this kind of like pattern this year with obviously depth concerns. Ark Armstead, Javon Kinlaw being players that are not with the 49ers team right now, still working back from injury. But at defensive back in the long term, I think I agree. Emmanuel Moseley, as unfortunate as it is, that injury that derailed a great season from a high end cornerback 2, potentially a low end cornerback 1, at his age is going to probably drop down his cost. And you're going to get a guy who's entering his prime probably at an incentive laden deal. So that's going to be huge for the 49ers. I think if they are able to secure that. Talking about the next part, though, about the 49ers, in the short term, I think that that's going to be an issue that the 49ers face because you don't know. And with depth, it's already unfortunate, right? When you talk about the 49ers, Diablo Lenore has been all right. He's better suited to play the nickel, but you can't play him elsewhere. Dante Johnson, when he came, played in the nickel. So Deommodore Lenore was outside. And I saw that comment. That's why I brought him up from Lake City Fresh. But Dante Johnson played the nickel. It's not like he was playing on the outside when he came. You have poor outside depth at the moment. And I think that that's going to hurt you if an injury does occur, but also because it provides defenses another target where they're going to target that other side of the field. And that is where the 49ers have struggled at times in years past, especially down the stretch, and they could struggle again in 2022.
Well, it's crazy too because going into the season, I made the statement that this was the best secondary the 49ers have had since 1994. People are like, "Oh, you're crazy." I'm like, "I don't think so." Like, it's a legit, and it early on showed to be every bit of exactly what I thought it was, and that was without Jimmy Ward. I'm thinking, okay, not only are they going to get Jimmy Ward back, they're going to get Verrett back, and if Verrett's your first corner off the bench, what a great position that you're going to be in.
Right.
And man, now it's like, okay, well, it's still overall, it's a good secondary. It's not a bad secondary. There's plenty worse than what the 49ers have even still at this moment, but it's not what it was. That depth is completely gone, and we're halfway through the season. We still have a whole second half plus a game to go through, and they've lost all the depth at this point. So, and it doesn't even have to be a long-term injury. It's just, hey, if Travarius Ward goes down for a game or two, you may
Right, we
not win
saw the
those games.
ramifications of it in the Atlanta game, right? Ward
Yeah.
went down. That's where they
Yep.
started to get that offense clicking, and that's one of the worst pass offenses in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right. So, that's the position that they're in right now. That is the position they're in. I would imagine maybe, maybe not. But did Sidney Jones ever get picked up? I thought he might have signed a deal, but I wasn't
I
sure.
think I think he did. He got
Did he?
I think he got claimed. He might have gotten claimed, but yeah, he got claimed by Las Vegas.
Okay. So yeah, Sidney Jones isn't out there. I mean,
The top guy is
you'll
probably like
pick.
Trey Wayne from Cincinnati, or maybe
Yeah,
I don't know.
Trey
I don't know if
Wayne's
Chris Harris maybe,
Bouye
but he's also
probably out
old.
there. I don't know, man. It's bleak. It's just
Yeah.
bleak to say the least.
And this is why I was also clamoring for the 49ers to trade for a cornerback at the deadline. Now,
Mm.
in a way, it was going to be unlikely because we heard that the cornerbacks were pricey. My guy was Bryce Hall, the guy who the Jets were shopping given that relationship. But cornerbacks were pricier than normal. But at the end of the day, if you're chasing a championship, what price are you not willing to pay to go get that, right? And so it's unfortunate. Jason Verrett was the guy that they relied on for you, like you said. It it is tough to sometimes rely on a player with that level of an injury history, especially with some of the setbacks that he seemed to be facing during that time. But now the 49ers are kind of stuck in this limbo. And so I want to kind of turn the page. Let's move to the game right here in the immediate short term. 49ers versus Chargers. What are your initial thoughts about this matchup and kind of take some takeaways that you might have?
Yeah. Well, first of all, this is why you play the games because at the beginning of the season, you go through the schedule, wins, losses, all these other things. I had this marked down as a loss. I really thought, and I thought the Chargers would win the AFC
Yeah,
West.
same.
Unfortunately for them, they are as injury prone as the San Francisco 49ers are. They are snake bitten over there. So here we go again. They've lost some really, really good players, not only for the year in a couple cases, but right now they are down some amazing talent. I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking top tier talent. Bosa, Jackson, Slater, like really top tier players they are out. Oh, not to mention both their wide receivers. It's
Hmm.
absolutely insane. So this is a game where the 49ers 100% need to come out and prove that they are for real. You're coming off of a bye week. It kind of low key reminds me of what the Rams should have done to the 49ers. They were coming off of a bye week. They were getting players back. The 49ers were banged up, getting ready for their bye week. And they started out good, but then they fell on their face and started losing because of penalties and they couldn't move the ball anymore. And the 49ers just looked really good and started to pull away. But that's what I think the 49ers should do is they've got to come out right away. They got to establish a lead because the Chargers are, when they're playing from behind, it's not good for them. And just assert the dominance right away. You are the more talented team right now. You are at home. You're the healthier team. Get the job done. You've got tons of weapons. There is no excuses. This is a game that they should not only win, but they should win going away, in my opinion.
I think so. I think that just like you, beginning of the season, I had this marked as a loss. I thought the 49ers would end up 5-3 rather than 4-4 going into the bye. Thought that they would lose this game. And I mean, in a way, it's reminiscent of their past. They haven't done very well coming off the bye week. So that could very well be the case. But regrouping after the bye week, the Chargers already depleted, But going into week 10 without their own bye week, I think that that's something that will be a struggle, especially with the injuries you've already named to big players. Herbert has been without his top weapon, Keenan Allen, for a good amount of time now. And it's that lingering hamstring injury that have hurt a lot of players. Michael Thomas to be one, and a lot of different players have had that extended period of leave because of that. Mike Williams probably expected to be out because he was mentioned as week to week. Joey Bosa could play, but again, he might be a guy who the 49ers might miss as well. And so, or sorry, the Chargers might miss as well. So it's going to be a very, it's going to be a very winnable game for the 49ers, but we've also seen that their winnable games have been games that they've lost in the past. So that's kind of my major thing. I think this team has a higher ceiling than they did when they were inconsistent in that first half, but I also think that this team is capable of losing certain games when they shouldn't.
Yeah, they've proven that. But here's the thing is I think they really figured out some things in that game against the Rams. I get it. It's just the Rams. We expected them to win that game, but I think they figured out enough. And not only that, but you look at the second half of the season, 7 of the 9 games are, and this shout out to Sunil for this stat, 7 to 9 games are against teams that are bottom 10 as far as points given up. So the 49ers not only have added to their offense, they've been able to have the bye week at a perfect time. They're getting healthy and they're playing a bunch of really bad defenses. If the second half looks anything like the first half from a standpoint of points scored, then I really am going to start to question Kyle Shanahan. I'm sorry. You've got more than enough right now to go make
and I would too.
Really, really happen. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would too. And I'm a guy who has vocalized my support for Kyle Shanahan over the years. This is now you're reaching that era where you don't have excuses anymore. I don't expect the 49ers to win a Super Bowl this year. We'll get to that topic in a little bit. But this is now all your pieces put together. You've seen the formula that could be sustainable in the second half of the last game, where you probably played your best half offensively of the year. You got to now be sustainable for 60 minutes, not just that 30 minutes. But talking about the 49ers, one of the biggest ways that they could lose this game is not being able to contain Justin Herbert. What's your solution to this? And do you think that this could be a big issue for the 49ers, who have struggled to contain some quarterbacks in the past?
Yeah, I mean, Herbert's interesting because he certainly is mobile, but he's not as mobile as a lot of these other guys. It's, in fact, when I think of Trey Lance, I think more of a Justin Herbert type, a guy that can get loose, but a guy that's clearly looking to throw the ball, not looking to run a ton. And I don't expect them to put Justin in a lot of harm's way. Plus, let's be real, his receivers are not good right now. And so they should be able to press the hell out of them. I'm looking for a lot of dump offs, a lot of screen passes. And really, Herbert, credit to him. I mean, this is a guy who has all the talent in the world. He can make every single throw. We've seen it through the years. But he's turned more into a game manager type quarterback because the weapons just aren't there. They aren't getting the separation. And when you go look at his turnover rate, it's extremely low. It's at like 1.54 or something like that. Very, very low. So he's turned into a game manager, even though that is not his skill set whatsoever. You got to give him a lot of credit for that. But I don't look at Justin Herbert the way that I look at some of those other quarterbacks that they played and are gonna play, and guys like Kyler Murray coming up. I don't look at him the same way. What I would be terrified of is his ability to stretch the field, but they don't have anybody that scares me in that standpoint because of the injuries. So I really think that this should be a game where they're able to win off the edge. Their right tackles, I mean, we talk about Mike McGlinchey. Their right tackles are in a way worse situation over there.
Yeah.
Way worse. So the 49ers, whoever they put over there, should absolutely dominate and make Herbert's life a living hell, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, Herbert, he operates under pressure well, and he's going to be able to do certain things. But as you've seen in past weeks, that Chargers offense, which has been so highly vaunted, has been limited. And in a way, that has changed the game plan forcing shorter throws. You don't have the big playability that Herbert can operate out of, and not only because of the offensive line, but also because of the weapons. And so that limits that offense, makes it dependent in a way on the run to be sustainable for that the entirety of a game. Because if they don't have that run game, that's where defenses can really pressure the quarterback and take advantage of the lack of weapons.
Well, and you look at it, I mean, they've really used the short passing game as an extension of the run game because that's what they've had to do. Herbert in the last 3 games has 57 attempts, 51 attempts, and 43 attempts. He has not eclipsed 300 yards in any of those games. That tells you what type of quarterback he's forced to be at this moment.
There we go. Real quick before I continue on, I do want to give a shout out to everybody that has entered the chat today. Niner Gang Wolfcast, thank you for tuning in and for the compliment to me and Jesse. RSF 49ers, thank you for tuning in. Fernando, 49ers Throwback as well, thank you for tuning in. David Villa, thank you for tuning in, as well as Lake City Fresh, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate all you guys that always come in and support, especially on this Thursday night. It means the world to me, and it's really the reason why I continue to enjoy doing this and doing this. I obviously enjoy all of you guys' interaction, but also like interacting with you, Jesse. So continuing forward, the 49ers, how do they win this game, both offensively and defensively?
Yeah, I mean, they got to get back to what makes them great, running the ball. I mean, that's the key to them winning. They really, both of this is going to come down to controlling the line of scrimmage. And it should be a game that they are able to do so because of the injuries to the Chargers. They've got to control the line of scrimmage on offense and on defense. The biggest thing that worries me right now is with Eric Armstead out, I still think that they are vulnerable up the middle. I get what the stats say. Number 1 rush defense. I get all that. But they've been fortunate since Eric Armstead's been out where outside of the Falcons, they haven't faced a lot of teams that are just going to run the ball like crazy. But if a team commits to running the ball, they will be able to get loose against the 49ers because right now they don't have that beef up the middle to stop the run. And so that's what it's going to come down to. It sounds like Samson Ebicom is going to be out as well, which is going to hurt Drake Jackson. It's your time to step up, kid. They drafted you in the 2nd round. You've got a half of a season under your belt. You're coming off the bye week. This is your time to shine. And ultimately, it's just going to come down to controlling the line of scrimmage for me on both sides of the ball, and that's how they're going to get it done.
Right. I mean, the reason the Falcons were so close last week, despite a horrendous passing attack, was because they ran the ball 35 times and got 201 yards with a variety of running backs. And so that kind of kept them in the game. Obviously, they had a late miscue, and the 49ers definitely do have a better passing attack. So if they are able to continue running the football, I think that that is going to be a recipe for success, especially now with the offensive line kind of gaining more cohesion. You see, obviously, the evolution of Aaron Banks, the rotation between Spencer Burford and Daniel Brunskill. I don't understand it as much, but overall, the running backs now, you add Christian McCaffrey, who has had a huge impact not only in the running game but passing game. But now you have Elijah Mitchell back as well, so you kind of have all your pieces back offensively in that running game, which is going to be vital against a defense that has struggled against the run a lot this year.
Yeah, and that's just it. I mean, they have a multitude of weapons that they can throw at the Chargers. They really should. I mean, don't be shocked if they run the ball 40 times this game. I really think it could be one of those types of games for the 49ers.
And speaking of running 40 times a game, you're not going to obviously give Christian McCaffrey 40 carries. What do you expect between the load of Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey? Do you expect a 50-50 split, or what's kind of your thought process in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you probably want to keep Elijah Mitchell around 15 to 17 carries first game back. I think that's a fair workload for him. I think Elijah Mitchell, you keep him around 15, 17. C-Mac, you can probably get up closer to that 18, 20 range. And then, you got a couple others. You could either mix Deebo in. You obviously have your 2 rookie running backs that have gotten basically no burn. You can give them a run or 2.
Hey, don't forget Tyron Davis-Price's 14 carries in that amazing Week 2 win.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Okay, great. So, yeah, there you go. You get a couple carries for probably TDP will be your 3rd running back, and that's it. That's all you need to get there. I don't. For me, CMC, I want to keep him under 23 touches in a game. Last game, he
Okay.
got 27. If we can keep him between that 18 and 23 total touches, I think that's the sweet spot for him. I think that's the great thing between Elijah Mitchell, Deebo, and CMC. They all kind of intertwine and cross over just enough to where they can all keep each other healthy and
Yeah.
give each other less of the load so that they can try to remain fresh throughout the season.
Yeah, I think that the split, I think earlier in the week I said it'd be closer to maybe 60-40 McCaffrey just because Mitchell is coming back. That's what I'm expecting, maybe a little bit of a lower load than you normally expect from Mitchell. I think that probably falls around those 15 carries, 17 carries a game. But I'm very interested to see how the 49ers operate this week because this is the perfect opportunity to get those younger runs some run because you're going to want to run 30, 40 times in this game against a very porous defense. And you're not going to want to feed Christian McCaffrey 25, 30 times, especially with the Mexico City game the week after. You want to keep the tread fresh throughout the remainder of the season. That's why you traded for him and kept Elijah Mitchell. And so to me, I do expect the running backs, the younger ones, to at least get some carries, and I wonder what that role would be.
Yeah, definitely. It would be nice. It would be nice to get a couple carries. It'd be nice to get just a couple carries for these guys. Like
Please,
you got rid of Wilson.
Just two.
Two. Give me two. Can I see a little bit? They got rid of Wilson, and I thought that was a good move. I think you and I talked about it on Twitter a little bit. I think we agreed that was a good move. That was the right move. What else are you going to do? You can't throw any of these guys on a practice squad. You have to trade one of them. And Jeff Wilson's the oldest of all of them. He's not re-signed through next year. That was the move to make. So I like that.
Yeah.
But now you've got to figure out if you can trust some of these other guys. You may need to trust one of these guys eventually. So start working them into the mix a little bit here. 3 to 5 carries. I don't think it's going to hurt anybody.
Yeah. But one thing you did mention that does not involve those rookie backs, Deebo Samuel. He hasn't been as effective as a running back really this year. Apart from that 151-yard carry in Chicago in week 1, he's only averaged around 3.7, 3.8 carry yards per carry on the season, much lower than that 6.2 yards per carry on the year. He's had a bit of a disappointing season, but I feel like Christian McCaffrey could unlock a little more from Deebo Samuel, not only as a running back, but also as a receiver. What do you expect in the first real week where these two are operating together?
I mean, they free each other up big time. I'll tell you this to be just 100% with you. When I was watching that Rams game and they had Jeff Wilson back there with Christian McCaffrey, I thought to myself, that's Deebo and Christian McCaffrey. In an ideal world, if you can get both of them in the backfield together, imagine the confusion and just brain F that you're going to put linebackers and safeties through. Like, what are you going to do? How do you cover these guys? You can hand off one, you can hand off the other, you can fake a handoff, you can screen to one. There's so many things.
Make it even better. Have Deebo and Mitchell in the backfield, CMC in the slot, 3 running back sets.
Yeah, 100%. You could. I think for me, what I would like to see is if they run Deebo, I want to get back to that jet sweep game.
I agree.
Like now you have the weapons where if you send Deebo in motion, before it kind of lost its luster, because if you sent Deebo in motion, the whole defense was looking at Deebo. Now it's like, well, if you have Christian McCaffrey in the backfield and you send Deebo in motion, I think some of those eyes are going to stay at CMC. And so that's where you can start to mix in some of those jet sweeps. And that's what I would prefer to do with Deebo, because A, he's effective at it. B, instead of going up against a bunch of fat daddies up the middle, you're going against some corners and maybe some outside linebackers. I much prefer that. So for me, that's what I would like to see. If Deebo's going to run the ball, do that. And, maybe a run or two to the outside from the backfield, mix in some Texas or choice routes. I'm down with all of that, but that would be my preference with Deebo Samuel.
I agree. I think that that's a good way to look at it. And we have a question here for Matthew, or really a statement. Lenore and Thomas don't look good to me. They can't stay in the same area code of receivers. Herbert will pick on them is essentially what he's saying. What do you kind of take away from this? Do you think that that's a bit of a worry, especially with the receivers that Los Angeles is likely going to trot out?
I don't think this is the week. I think Herbert's the quarterback, but I don't think these receivers are going to be able to get that separation. I really don't expect it. Well, I don't think Lenore's been horrible. I think he's better in the nickel than he is outside. I will agree with that. I would prefer that he played in the nickel. played the nickel role and that they maybe had Womack on the outside or Dante Johnson, something like that. But I don't think this is the week where you're going to see somebody get bodied. We'll see. Palmer's not bad, but he's certainly not Allen or Williams. So
Right, and he'll probably match up against Charvarius Ward, or we'll see what they attempt to do, but he won't be on Lenore the entire time. Now I want to kind of get into a interesting topic. I know you're a negative Nancy. Nobody likes you in the community because you're so negative. But 49ers, a lot of people have claimed that they are Super Bowl contenders this year. A lot of people have made the argument because the addition of Christian McCaffrey has now elevated that offense. No Jason Verrett anymore. Do you think that that's still the case? And how optimistic are you in that regard?
listen, Rohan, this is an 8-win team at best. No, I'm just joking. But it would fit the
I
negative
clipped it.
Nancy.
I clipped it. It's going on Twitter.
Perspective, yeah. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I'm sure you saw the executive poll that came out that said that the 49ers were Super Bowl favorites, NFC, that it would be them in Buffalo. I thought that was interesting. They 100% they're Super Bowl contenders. I look at the NFC and I look at every matchup that they could possibly draw. Giants don't scare me. Seattle doesn't scare me. Minnesota's good. That's an interesting matchup, but I'm still not scared of Minnesota. I'm not scared of Tampa
Been an
Bay.
interesting team this year in the the way that they've won and all the quarterback play that they faced this year.
Yeah, that's very true. Listen, Minnesota's good, but I feel like the 49ers are a really bad matchup for them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Philly's the one team. And it has nothing to do with their record. By the way, you can go find me talking about preseason. One team that scared me in the NFC, the dark horse team that I thought might be the best team in the NFC, was the Philadelphia Eagles. And they've been giving up a little bit in the run game as of late, but that's because they've got their big rookie defensive tackle on IR because of a high ankle sprain. He will be back. And when you pair him with Fletcher Cox, it is not easy to run against that. So
that
the
defensive
Eagles
line
are
is
a team,
like they're legit.
I mean, where's the weakness? They've got an incredible offensive line, an incredible defensive line. Linebackers are improving. Great secondary. I mean, a lockdown secondary. Their quarterback is mobile. That's terrifying. Philadelphia's, I think they can beat Philly, but that's the only one that I look at and go, I don't know if they're going to win that game. Outside of that, I mean, so that tells me, yeah, they're definitely Super Bowl contenders. Losing Verrett is not helpful by any means, but I think it's something that they can overcome enough to be legit Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah, I think we're in the same kind of boat that we've been in previous years. A lot of people remembering that the 49ers are Super Bowl contenders and Jimmy Garoppolo is still the quarterback. It's the same story again, but obviously with Christian McCaffrey, you have a lot more upside. And I don't know about you, I was impressed with how Jimmy Garoppolo operated in that Rams game, the way that he actually progressed through his reads and hit Christian McCaffrey in the flat, sometimes even hitting the read when the blitz came, at which he hasn't necessarily done all season. And so to me, I think that while Garoppolo isn't a different player, I think that there is still some part of him some part of comfortability that can be unlocked because of the presence of McCaffrey, because the 49ers have never had a good receiving running back. That hasn't been the case unless you say Deebo Samuel is that guy on his Texas routes and stuff, but they haven't had that guy. And they also haven't had that guy who's as elusive, as slippery as McCaffrey, to where if you throw a check down on 3rd and 7, he has the potential to get a first down and break those tackles. So to me, I do think that this offense still has yet to hit its full potential, because they haven't played well for 4 quarters. But if the potential is unleashed offensively, I think this team is good enough to where they should be considered Super Bowl contenders. The only thing is, can they be consistent? Because as impressive as that second half was against the Rams, we still haven't seen one game in the first 8 weeks of this year that the 49ers have played good football offensively for 4 quarters.
Yeah, and that's realistically been you can go back to last year. I mean, you can maybe pin a game or two where they did that. They've been inconsistent offensively for 2 full seasons, essentially. I mean, you can probably even go back into 2020 if you wanted to. This has not been a consistent offense. However, I agree with what you said, and this jumped out at everybody that went back and watched that game and paid attention. Jimmy Garoppolo was so much more comfortable because of Christian McCaffrey. Just having that for sure safety blanket. It's like, hey, because the way Jimmy Garoppolo plays, he's a rhythm quarterback. He wants to get back. He wants to get to that first read. And if that first read's open, he's money. The moment he has to start going through his reads, and not because he can't go through his progressions, people always try to slide him a little bit and say he's a one-read quarterback. That is not the case. He can go through his progressions, but he gets antsy in the pocket. He gets happy feet. He starts fading away on his throws. Even if he sees it, it's late, and all of a sudden he's getting these picks over the middle, that type of stuff. Well, now what you saw in that game, and we'll see if it's something that they can continue to do, but what you saw in that game is he's very comfortable with Christian McCaffrey as a dump-off man, and so he was calmly just sitting back there, going through his progressions, sometimes even making it to his fifth progression on a down, on a drop back, which is so rare for a quarterback to get to his fifth progression. He's had the time. The offensive line has done a great job giving him time this year. And so now you pair that with having a guy like Christian McCaffrey to dump the ball off to, it makes Jimmy's job so easy. I mean, they've got, you think about it, Juszczyk, C-Mac, Deebo, Trent Williams, George Kittle. They have 5 all-pro, not Pro Bowl caliber, all-pro caliber players on this team. If you can't get it done with that, I don't know what to tell you. And right now, that talent can overcome mediocre quarterback play. And as long as Jimmy Garoppolo can stay patient in the pocket and make his reads and he feels comfortable, the sky's the limit for this team. It really is.
I agree. And one thing about it, I think an underrated notion about the 49ers offense this year, the blind side. Trent Williams and Aaron Banks have, for the majority of the season, have provided Garoppolo with clean pockets on that blind side, which has made him also more comfortable, with the addition of Christian McCaffrey only furthering that comfortability in the pocket. Yeah, we saw poor throws, but I think now with that combination of them two on the left side alongside CMC in the backfield or Deebo in the backfield or whatever the 49ers choose to do, Garoppolo should feel comfortable in all of his top weapons to where he doesn't need to rush those. He doesn't need to get antsy. He doesn't need to fail under pressure, which is a huge thing for the 49ers this year. And really, like you said, will determine whether the sky, like if that sky's the limit potential can really be reached.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll see. I mean, because once you get to the playoffs, teams start to figure out, okay, if this is your safety blanket, I'm going to take it away and I'm going to force you to go elsewhere. But the problem with that is there's just so much talent on this team. It's like you can't take it all away. At some point, you're going to give something up. There's going to be something open. And as long as Jimmy can find that, then, I mean, I just don't know how you stop it. I have no idea how you stop it.
And because we're talking so nicely about Jimmy Garoppolo, we've got to bring up one of the more controversial topics that you yourself kind of spun out there yesterday.
Yeah.
Trey Lance. Now, we've seen the pictures. A couple of weeks ago, we saw, obviously, Trey Lance working through his rehab. We've seen him without the boot. That swelling appears to be down. He appears to be going well in his rehab. We saw the report when Lance got injured that it could be a 12 to 14 week injury, meaning he could be back for the remainder of the end of the 2022 season. Give me your thoughts where this originated, and do you think it's realistic?
Yeah, I do think it's realistic. It's funny because here's what happened, and there's a lot of confusion on what's happening around Trey Lance. When he went down, he had his surgery. 49ers said he's done for the season. And so people started to write that he's on season-ending IR, which is actually not a thing. Back in 2012, this rule changed. There is no season-ending IR. It's just you go on IR and you can either be brought back or you can't. You can bring up to 8 players back from IR throughout the season. As long as you don't go on IR before the season starts, you're eligible to return at any time. And so right now, I believe the 49ers, after Kinlaw, would have 6 of those 8 IR spots filled.
Kinlaw, I believe, would make it 7. Yeah.
Who would?
Kinlaw would make it 7, I believe.
I don't think so. I went through it yesterday, and I only counted 6. We can talk about it. We can go through it here in a second to hammer it down, or maybe you can look at it. But I think they're at 6. Either way, they've got that potential of it happening. They never put Trent Williams on IR. They never put
Never
Eric
put
Armstead
Armstead.
on IR, and they're trying to save those IR spots. Now, here's the thing, and this is where people took what I said, which I didn't say anything about him coming back and starting or any of those things. All I said was the original injury window, he's about 4 weeks away from that full healing process being done.
Right.
It's only 8 weeks removed. He's out of a boot. He doesn't have crutches. So when you think about that, 8 weeks from that injury, he's already walking on his own. It is not at all out of the realm of possibility that in 4 weeks he can run and throw and do everything he needs to do. And in fact, I will just tell you from experience, I broke my ankle, not the exact same situation, but it was a broken ankle. And instead of a ligament damage, which by the way, his ligament damage is equivalent to that of like a high ankle sprain. So if you don't think a high ankle sprain can heal in 14 weeks, I think you're a little crazy.
Right.
So I had cartilage damage though. So I had to get new cartilage and repair a broken ankle. At the 12-week mark, my doctor told me, I want you to go back to playing flag football, which is on turf, by the way. I want you to go play flag football. I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready. He goes, I need you to push it. I know you don't feel comfortable, but once a bone is healed, there is nothing to wait for. You just go push it and you push it and you get through things mentally. That's what these doctors try to do. They will try to force you outside your comfort zone and tell you, listen, this thing is healed. Go full force on it. You're fine. I promise you. So I imagine that's going to happen with Lance, who, by the way, is going to attack this thing full force. And John Lynch echoed those sentiments. So let me clear this up, though. When I put it out, I said something to think about, not out of the realm of possibility. My mind, what I'm thinking is, okay, Lance has been around the team. He's been taking those mental reps. He's been in the film room. Wouldn't it be nice for your future quarterback to get any physical reps? If he can somehow come back and run the scout team and be your backup quarterback just in case, I think that's something you have to look into. Why would you not look into that? It doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying, oh, he's healthy, go throw him out, he's starting for the playoffs. That is not at all where I was going with that. Now, people ran with it and took it in that direction. Oh, you're, this, that, whatever. But the bottom line is if he is healthy and he is cleared, you have to integrate him back into this team. I'm sorry. Not Jimmy Garoppolo, is the starting quarterback. I'm not saying you give him the starting job, but he is the future of this team. You have to give him every rep that he can possibly get so that he can be successful in the future. And I know that Shanahan said season-ending injury. Listen, there are multiple reasons why Shanahan would say that. One, day after surgery, they don't know. That's number one. Number two, when these situations started to happen, he doesn't want to put any pressure on his young quarterback to even open up the thought that, oh my gosh, in 10 or 12 weeks when he's walking around, we don't want that pressure on him. We don't want any expectations on him. We don't want you asking. We don't want to talk about it. And if he can come back, we'll sneak him in and let you know he's back. That's the way that I read that situation.
Now, here's what I'll say before I make my piece on that. Currently, the 49ers, here are the players that have already returned from IR. Elijah Mitchell, 1. Colton McKivitz, 2. Jordan Willis got his practice window open. That's number 3 because the practice window was open. Jimmy Ward is 4. Azeez Al-Shire was 5. And then Kurt Robinson, that was the 6th. So right now, the 49ers do have 6 players that they have already returned from IR. It's the reason why when Trent Williams underwent a high ankle sprain, when you've seen Arik Armstead go through plantar fasciitis and the other injury that he sustained as well, the fibula injury that we just recently heard about, that's why they didn't be placed on IR, because you don't want to utilize all 8 spots in the first half of the season. Now, if that spot is available at that time when Lance is ready to return, I am fine using that spot. I just don't think it's realistic for that spot to be available because of how the 49ers have had injuries in the past, and that Javon Kinlaw, if he's deemed capable of returning, could eventually be that 7th guy. So that's kind of my analysis. But if you have that option of him being fully healthy, of him coming back in 2022, I think that is where you want probably Trey Lance to return and just serve as the backup. Because I think you're kidding yourself if you say Trey Lance is worse than Brock Purdy. You have to not only get the reps for Lance, but you have to do what's best for the team. And I think that if doctors do deem him fully healthy, like he said, getting those mental reps, potentially working through scout team, that could be very helpful for him because he has not gotten reps 3 years into his NFL career. You need to get him, regardless of its practice reps, because we saw the practice reps did help from last year to this year. Regardless of its practice reps, game reps, whatever it may be, I think those would be valuable. And so if that spot does arise, I would be totally fine if that happens.
Yeah, and like I said, the biggest thing I wanted to do was clear up confusion there,
Right?
because it was written by a lot of people, season-ending IR, and so everybody thinks, oh, he cannot come back. In fact, we had the conversation in Spaces, and there was a lot of confusion. We were like, hey, he can't come back, whatever. And then when I looked into it yesterday, I'm like, no. There is no season-ending IR if it happens during the season. Technically, he can come back, yes.
Agreed. And I think that's a good way to end today's show. Jesse, I do appreciate all your time, obviously, late in the night over there on the East Coast. Guys in the chat, thank you guys so much for tuning in and making the chat lively today. Really appreciate the support. For those of you guys that aren't subscribed, greatly appreciate if you do subscribe to the channel. And also go over to Last Second Sport if you aren't subscribed, which would be a blasphemy. Be sure to subscribe over there to Jesse's channel as well, because he puts out daily content and he puts out great content every single day. But guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next time.